Hello guys, today in this video I would like to unveil a fantastic feature which is owned by Stellarium software, widely used for a multitude of visualization, the astronomical events. Probably many times you wondered how the Stellarium horizon can be changed in light of the altitude which is available here. I've got some trick for you to show in this short video tutorial today. Like you see in default, the elevation is set as 0 meters, which firmly corresponds to the sea level. However, when you start typing any location here, you will see that the elevation will change accordingly to the location provided. However, you won't see the difference in your landscape, if that makes sense. Now, imagine that you want to go higher and see how the sky could look from higher altitude than the ground-based altitude provided at your location. At first, let's play with our horizon, because we certainly don't need to see any horizon. You can obviously turn the landscape here, but regardless the type of landscape you prefer, the most important thing is the transparency, which can be set on any value. We can leave it as it is, the 50%, and eventually what you could see at sunrise or sunset, which appears to be the best moment of demonstration this pattern, you will see that your sky in Stellarium in default is mirrored. What does it mean? It means that the horizon acts like ground mirror against which the celestial sphere is reflected. When I use the azimuthal grid provided by the software, I will notice that the 0 degree, which marks the geometrical horizon line, overlays exactly with the zone responsible for mirroring our sky. It indicates the limitation, in other words, and this is basically the thing which can be troublesome at some points. But going to the crucial aim of this video, I need to demonstrate you how the altitude changes work in light of this particular feature. So imagine that I will change my altitude from 200 meters above sea level to, let's say, 5,000 of meters. Immediately I can see that this mirrored line went slightly down. Unfortunately, the horizontal grid doesn't follow this adjustment, which is basically a shame, and I hope that Stellarium eventually will fix it. But at least for now, you can notice that your horizon has been dipped at some point. If I change my elevation to 15,000 of meter, I can see the other situation, and certainly the sun appears fairly above the horizon. Alright, so now let's back to our horizon settings and set the transparency, which unfortunately doesn't help us because our horizon still looks as normal, along with the horizontal grid, which is useless in our point of view. At least you can see changes in the sky coloration, which are rendered correctly. But now I'm gonna show you how to deal with situation like we have. So I showed you previously the transparency. Now let's put the transparency into 1, and effectively our horizon will be gone. Instead of it, we can see the mirrored sky sphere, about which I told you a while ago. And unfortunately, it's still not helpful enough for our situation. When I, for example, start fiddling with the time, changing the hour, I see the sunset from the altitude of 15,000 of meter, and the moment when the sun certainly sets behind the horizon. But in order to fix this problem and make this marvelous feature useful for everyone, I need to go again to sky and viewing window, and in the sky mode I've got the option like atmosphere visualization, and when I click here, I've got an additional options where I need to make sure that the show my sky mode is chosen. And what is the most important, just below the eclipse simulation quality, I've got the show debugging options, which must be turned on. And once they are developed in the drop-down, we can see a few other options. Amid switch, you will spot the last one, mirror the sky under the horizon. Since this option is unticked, we've got the view which pretty much would resemble the real outdoor conditions exactly at an altitude of 15,000 of meters. Since now any altitude changes will have more sense, because when we set up the other altitude, we can imagine how the sky looks like from this certain altitude by having enclosed horizon beneath. I think this way of rendering the view of the sky at various altitude above the provided random location works much better without horizon and without the sky mirror in the space where the horizon should be. The last thing is the azimuthal grid, which unfortunately still corresponds to our ground-based horizon, adequate to the sea level. So we can treat it as the comparison between the situation which would look like if we are on the ground against the situation where an observer is placed hypothetically at an altitude indicated by us in the Stellarium software. Currently it's been set on 14,000 of meters above the sea level, but once changed to other altitude, the view seems to look quite realistic. Of course, you will have all the celestial bodies located beneath, but your horizon will certainly resemble the horizon as visible, for instance, from the cruising altitude, without the clouds, obviously. So I hope that this fantastic feature, which is currently hidden among a multitude of other stellarium features, will become useful for anyone who plans some elevated astronomical observations. Thank you for your attention.